So if oh, what is this working? There we go. So y'all give us about 5 minutes and we'll get moving. Thank you. Okay, get everybody take a seat. We've got a couple more that are on the way. They'll be here shortly. John, sit up here with us. You give him a packet. You've seen a lot of this stuff, but so I'd like to officially kick off the Subcommittee for Artificial Intelligence for the House. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. We also want to thank the chairman for putting this committee together. We obviously had some legislation that passed through the House last year, didn't quite get to the governor's desk. However, the really great thing about this is it's interesting, right? In legislation, you have ripple effects across the United States, and a lot of what we did here in Georgia was utilized across the United States and several other states, which Patrick's going to talk about here in a little bit. We are really going to use this time to do a deep dive into AI policy. Again, like I said, last year we did quite a bit. We have Senator Albers here, who's running the study committee in the Senate on artificial intelligence. I'm actually going to give him a quick second to talk about what they're doing over in the Senate. We're going to work really close with them. A lot of it's going to be joint just to make it the maximum amount of participation. So, John, what mic are you on? 19. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Thomas. It's a sincere pleasure to be sitting here with your committee. This is the biggest thing that's going to happen in our lifetime, by far. And the work that we're going to do together on this is going to shape the future, and the future is now. This will cure cancer, but it will also create potential grave harm. And thank you, Chairman Thomas, for the work that you and I have been working on this. He has been very kind to participate in a couple of our meetings already. We are going to work again on some joint meetings from how this impacts everything from agriculture to our businesses, to our workforce, to the movie industry and everything in between. So we've been working on this together. So most of the stuff you see has got some great fingerprints of one Representative Brad Thomas on it as well. So thanks for the opportunity to serve alongside of you in this process.
So we're going to actually, if you don't mind, I got a little ahead of myself. I thought we'd do a quick word of prayer. Representative Gullett, would you mind? What number are you? Oh, never mind. Here you go. Thank you.
Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the ability to be here. Give us wisdom and strength and discernment as we consider the huge impacts of AI on not just our state, our country, just our communities and our lives. Bless those who are here. Bless those who can't be here and who are going through things. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and start do a quick set of introductions, say who you are. If you're not on the committee, that's okay. We have some maybe not committee members that wanted to join us today, and I appreciate you being here. I want to make these open to anybody that want to learn. So thank you. So Joseph, Representative Gullett, we'll start with you.
Yep. Thank you, Joseph Gullett, House District 19, representing Paulding County and West Cobb now.
I'm Debbie Buckner, House District 137. That's part of Columbus, Talbot, Meriwether, excuse me, and I'm glad to be here. I need all the intelligence, artificial or otherwise, that I can get. I'm Mary Margaret Oliver, House District 82 in middle of DeKalb County.
21.
I'm Marcus Wiedauer, live in Watkinsville. I represent most of Oconee County and a portion of Clark. Senator Albers, hope to learn a lot about AI from you. I hope you learn a little bit from the House being up here.
And good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Holcomb. I represent District 81, which is North Central DeKalb County. Thanks.
And my name is Brad Thomas. I represent Cherokee County. Worked on quite a bit of AI legislation last year, and look forward to getting back at it. We're going to take what we learned from last year and make our legislation even better this year. So thank you. With that said, I've got Patrick here is going to do a presentation real quick about some legislation across the United States that he's pulled together. So Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you. Did you want to present from here? It's completely your... Okay. All right.
Thank you, Chairman Thomas. So yeah, this past week first of all, I'm Patrick Mock. I'm the policy analyst for this committee. And this past week I was up at NCSL, the National Conference of State Legislatures. And I was really wanted to focus on their AI sessions that they had, about 10. And just to see where we're at across the whole United States, because I know Georgia introduced some legislation last year that didn't quite make it to the finish line, but I just wanted to really check out where other states are at and if we're ahead of the curve and behind. And what I really found is that surprisingly, AI is one of the few issues that actually it's not really trying to be regulated along partisan lines. So we have states like Alabama, Florida, and Indiana that have tried to tackle things like criminalizing election interference. They've created things like a technology council that will do research, and they research the AI development, research risks, and then they'll provide recommendations to the legislature based on what they find, rather than just the legislators jumping right onto it and trying to throw something out there that they're not really educated on. And they've done other things like creating task force that will provide them guidelines. And since these are a bit more conservative states, they've proposed, once they have these findings, and they'll produce some ethical use guidelines. And these will just be provided to companies who can voluntarily adhere to them, rather than just forcing regulation upon certain AI companies. Other states like Colorado, Maryland, and Virginia, they've done things like actually produce extensive framework that kind of outlines predetermined risks. They'll put them into different categories by risk level. So like a chat bot would be a low risk versus something like something that helps healthcare systems approve applicants and whatnot. That would be determined like a high risk. And these higher risk systems will be regulated more heavily. These more liberal states have also detailed regulations to address various aspects like data privacy, algorithmic transparency, bias mitigation, to kind of create a more consistent regulatory environment, rather than just leaving it up to these companies to hope that they follow ethical use guidelines. And based on what we saw from Georgia last year, we're really trying to take principles from both of these ideologies, like creating a task force to provide recommendations. And this past session, we saw bills relating to election interference, inventories, and levels of risk for personalized regulation. And it really seems that Georgia wants to kind of make sure there's guardrails there for using AI in safe and ethical manner without stepping on toes and hindering innovation in this industry. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So in your packet there, beyond the slides that we're going to see today, you'll see several of these. This is just various stuff across the United States, PowerPoints, just some more reference material as you're looking through. So we thought it was pretty good. We want to put it in your packet. The other thing I wanted to discuss really quick, and this is something that was pulled together by John and or Senator Albers, and I think it had maybe a little bit of impact on this, but it's this AI study committee framework. And basically what it talks about is, if you look, you have the vertical columns and you have the horizontal columns. Well, the vertical columns are specific to, an industry vertical, where the top part actually is the horizontals that touch every one of these industry verticals. So it's kind of a good descriptive way of showing how AI really, it touches everything. And what it is, what horizontal category that those would fall into. So this is just a real basic framework, but I thought it was a good starting point for us in our discussions today. If you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to talk with any of you offline about it. Additionally, I guess with that being said, Professor Pascal, are you ready to give your presentation? Great.
What I'm going to do is talk about Tech AI. Tech AI is the AI hub at Georgia Tech. And I'm going to try to cover some of the activities, obviously not all of them, of what we are doing in AI. Obviously, as Senator Albers has said, AI is a transformative technology. It's going to affect our lives in substantial ways. A lot of them, for the better, but we have also to make sure that, it's not used in ways that can have detrimental effects. So what is Tech AI? Tech AI is the hub at Georgia Tech. It covers every activities in AI at Georgia Tech. And the topic of Tech AI is trustworthy AI for societal impact. And we will focus on three main disciplines: AI for engineering, AI for science, and AI for education. And I'm going to, give you some snapshots of what we are doing in that space. Let me tell you a little bit about AI at Georgia Tech first. Georgia Tech is about 1,000 people working on AI. 500 of them are AI researcher faculty or research faculty, the rest being students studying and doing PhDs in AI. It's a significant critical mass, and as I will tell you in a moment, it's also a very large producer of AI talent for the country. Georgia Tech recently was ranked number 5 in the ranking of AI programs in the country, behind the usual top suspects, and we are trying to get into this top 4 as well. We face a very competitive, landscape with a lot of investment in AI across the country. Just to give you a sense, John Hopkins is receiving, $500 million for sustaining their initiatives in AI. Georgia Tech produces about 3.2% of the AI talent every year in the country. In that respect, it's the largest producer of talents inside the country. So we have an engine for AI talent here in the States, in addition to all the other schools, obviously. One of the things that we have is also the fact that NSF has created about 25 AI institutes across the country. They may add a few more this year. But the state of Georgia has 3 of them, and we are the only state with 3 AI institutes. And so this is kind of a credit to the AI talent that we have in the state again. One is on adult learning and education, and I will say a few words about this in a moment. One is about AI caring. It's about caring for population segments that have mild impairment. This is one of the big challenges that the country will face in the next 10 years. And the third one is the one that I also lead, which is the AI Institute for Advances in Optimization. And what we do there is AI for engineering. And I will say a few words about these kinds of applications, because that will give you the scope of what AI is doing across all the aspects of society that the AI is touching. Georgia Tech has also what is called interdisciplinary research institutes, and we have 3 of them which are related to AI. One of them is in robotics. We were talking about agriculture before. This is a big area for AI. Precision agriculture is a very important topic for AI. We have obviously an IRI on robotics and automation. This is also part of a big impact of AI is going to be in robotics and automation. And finally, we have an IRI, which is linked, which is basically the impact of technology and people, things like sensors, virtual reality, and so on. We have also a machine learning center, which administers the PhD program in AI that Georgia Tech has. This is one slide that I like always to put when I talk about AI at Georgia Tech. So obviously, in the last year or so, the public has realized the capability of AI through things like ChatGPT and others. But Georgia Tech actually has worked on this thing for a very long time. In 2015, we were actually using a virtual assistant for some of the classes that we were going. And one of the things that you can see there on the little snapshot is that some of the students wanted to give a teaching award to this virtual assistant. So this is a technology that has emerged from academia. It's not widespread. The use of that technology is widespread. But what I want to say is that this is something that the community had been working for a long time. This is a slide on hydroponics, which is a new type of agriculture that can happen in the cities. And this is where you actually use nutrients. You basically take the nutrients and feed them directly in the roots of the plants. You don't need soil, and that can actually revolutionize part of agriculture as well. To do things like that, you need robotics for monitoring the growth of the plant. You need computer vision to understand the shape of the plants, and then you need machine learning inspired by biology models to actually control the growth of the plant. So this is urban agriculture, which is a complement to obviously the traditional type of agriculture. I also want to talk about supply chain. The state here is a leader in supply chain and logistics. And again, AI is going to have a big impact on this. This is some of the experiments that we did in the semiconductor industry. These are real test cases with one of the largest semiconductor producer. And what you see is that we were able essentially to take some of the largest problems that the world is facing in that space and reduce the computation time massively, while guaranteeing optimal solutions for administering running their supply chains and manufacturing lines. Again, big impact of AI. These are things that could not be done a few years ago. Georgia Tech is investing as well a lot in education and how we actually can train more people in the AI space this is a workforce that will need a lot of new talent in the next couple of years. We have this new makerspace, which is about 160 machine, if I remember correctly, which are like the best machine that you can actually buy right now. And so all the undergraduate students at Georgia Tech will have access through the courses to these new computing facilities. So you have to think that this new generation of computer is going to be the backbone, kind of the highways of AI in the future. We teach high school. So one of the things that we do is actually doing a lot of camps and also a lot of engineering practice in some of the high schools in Atlanta. We have been training about thousands of students in AI. So we just this summer gave the first class for deep learning, which is the technology behind ChatGPT, most of the computer vision systems that we are using. So we basically taught students in the 10 and 11 grade what this technology does, and they were building system for recognizing clothes and things like this. Very successful camp. We have also a collaboration with Clark Atlanta University for creating a master program, a PhD program in AI inside Clark Atlanta University. This is a collaboration with 3 different schools at Clark, business school, the School of Mathematics, and the computer science schools. Also undergraduate research that they will do together with faculty at Georgia Tech. So it's a very active space. It's moving very fast, but I hope that I gave you some snapshots of what is happening at Georgia Tech and also its collaboration with other schools across the state. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be very happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We have any questions from the committee? Representative Oliver.
PhD graduates, where are they being recruited for jobs? And I assume they're being recruited.
Yeah, very heavily, very heavily. A lot of them are actually recruited by the main tech companies, the Google, Meta, Microsoft part of the country. But there is also a lot of interest in less traditional areas, companies that are not tech companies. Let's say in supply chains, for instance, or in healthcare. Healthcare is recruiting a lot of PhD students these days for imaging, for chatbots and things like that to triage of the patients and so on. So I think it's obviously they will try to go to the high tech. This is where they can get let's say the most attractive jobs for them. But you see also a large diversifications right now, and some of these students are going to these more engineering companies or healthcare companies in a sense.
I'm assuming the salary offerings are in the 6 figures.
Yeah, actually high 6 figures. So this is one of the challenges that we have. So one of the things that we are trying to do at Georgia Tech is make sure that we actually push the research as far as we can, such that we have an impact on the world. But recruiting AI engineers is extremely difficult because the salary that we can offer is, a small portion, like a factor of 3, compared to what the high-tech companies can do. What we are trying to do is recruit people who are interested in, working in between academia and industry, and get a lot of different problems that they can work on at the same time. So that's the strategy that we have to keep, kind of the talent here, so that we can bridge this gap between academia and the, let's say, the real world industry and so on.
Mr. Chair, may I ask one more? Would you talk a little bit more about AI in the healthcare world?
So as you know, a state like Georgia will face, let's say, just in brain health, we'll have a major crisis in the next 10 years. The number of patients that we will have with dementia, with Alzheimer's disease, and so on is going to grow significantly, and the healthcare system is not able to sustain that. So there are not enough neurologists. There are not enough, people working just in the healthcare, supply chain to actually make sure that we treat all these patients. And as you may know, we need to actually diagnose these diseases very early because that's where the medications are going to be the most effective. So one of the things that we are trying to do, and there are various places trying to do that, like Emory, for instance, they are trying to change the way they actually triage the patient, recruit the patients, and do better tests, more dedicated, more personalized, dedicated tests for making sure that this supply chain is as efficient as possible. That's the only way we will be able to address that, that challenge. And AI is going to be used in every aspect of that process. Obviously, you still need neurologists, you still need the doctors, but you can actually make their work more efficient such that they can focus on really the more sophisticated part of their current work and have AI help them to be in a position where they can make quicker decisions, and then they have the right data for actually making those decisions. So I think it's going to be a big challenge for the country. I think this is it's a very interesting area and very challenging area for AI because you have to be trustworthy by design. You have to have this, you have to be accountable to the AI system. We have to know that it's going to give you the right answer or quantify uncertainty when there is uncertainty in the decisions. It's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I want to begin with the education for the Seth Bonder camps for K through 12 students. Can you give a little more detail of what that looked like?
Yeah, so let me give you the motivation. I started this program about 10 years ago, and I think one of the reasons is that I believe that if you want people to enter the AI workforce, or in a sense, many of the more significant STEM fields, you need to actually recruit students very early on, and you have to give them the confidence to actually enter the field. You have to make sure that they understand that they can do this. And so the way we do this is that we basically have these camps that start from assuming nothing. They basically have no knowledge of computing or data science on AI. And we basically make them work through projects that are interesting for them. They predict sentiments when a hurricane is coming, sentiment of people. Sentiment is sentiment analysis. And we bring them step by step from learning computing tools, then data science, then AI, such that they understand what the technology can do. They write simple models, but models that have a lot of they can already do very interesting things like recognizing, who is entering a class. So what we did with Drew Charter High School, for instance, is a computer vision system. The student would come in the class, and the AI system would say, "Hello, Jarrett," or "Hello, Lesia." And so they would know, they build that system themselves. And so now they know that they can build this thing. It's not, they don't know all the details of how these systems are working, but they are capable of saying, "Hey, that's what an AI system can do. That's what it cannot do. That's the limitation." But, they get interested in the field. And so that's the pipeline then to recruiting them inside the colleges and the universities afterwards. So we work with high school in the sense that we do engineering practices with them. And then in the summer, we have these camps, week-long camps, where they basically work with the faculty and the PhD students at Georgia Tech for actually, learning that in a friendly environment. They work in groups, they have other activities, obviously, but they do this camp in 1 week, what we would do like in 6 weeks inside their engineering practice at the university, at the high school level. The next step is actually to try to democratize that to make sure that we train the teachers in such a way that we can actually have every high school here in the state be able to actually teach that material. So we want to have a new program, a faculty training program. So every high school teachers in the state, I'm discussing that this afternoon actually, to make sure that we have the capability of training all these teachers and making sure that they can deliver this material inside a high school. And so the hope is that by doing that, you make the students interested early on, you give them the confidence to enter the field, and then we basically build the AI talent here in the States.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer the question?
It did perfectly. And you anticipated where I was going, which is my sense is that currently it's a very, very small fraction of our students that have exposure to this.
Absolutely, much too small. I think there is a very strong demand, but we are very well positioned to address this because we have a lot of experience doing this. Now it's actually, you should see how successful these camps are. The students are amazing. We have students coming from Houston to take the camps here at Georgia Tech. So it's amazing. So I think we are in a unique position now. Also, we have all the computing resources. So we were the first one to use the makerspace in the Seth Bonder camp. So I think we are in a very interesting space. And one of the things that we want to do at Georgia Tech is also open these computing facilities to the schools across the state, so that they can actually use the computing resources. Because it's impossible to do some of the things that we are doing if you just have your laptop or simple computing facilities.
Right. So besides encouraging youth to be interested, I think we'll also need to be prepared to have training for adults in terms of reorienting perhaps their careers, et cetera.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about potential industries that may be completely changed, radiology, for example, among others. So with that, you mentioned the program with Clark Atlanta University and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has fantastic MOOCs, which are also relatively inexpensive.
Yes.
Do you see something along those lines moving forward, perhaps in the artificial intelligence space?
Yeah, so we have big initiatives in that space. So that we have just approved, the Board of Regents has approved a College of Lifelong Learning for Georgia Tech. And the goal is exactly what you're talking about. It's actually, there will be transition in different industries, and you have to educate the workforce to actually work in a new environment where there will be new jobs, but these jobs will require interacting with an AI system, understanding what the AI system is doing. So there will be different jobs. And one of the goals that we have is to actually make sure that we re-educate the workforce to work in those new environments. So that's one of the big goals that we have. We also want to actually educate every executive about what AI can do, what AI shouldn't do. Also mid-level managers, such that they understand how they can exercise changes in their own organizations. So that's one of the big goals that we have as well. So there will be a lot of changes, but one of the things that we have to be proactive on is actually making sure that we train the next generation and the existing workforce such that they can adapt to this new environment. So this is in the plan. It's something that we are thinking really deeply on the best way to organize. You talked about MOOCs. This is one of the things that we want to do, more MOOCs on AI, but in the keeping the quality that we had. We don't want to get out something which is extremely simple. We want actually that the MOOCs that we do have substance, and people will take them because they will learn deeply what the technology is doing. So we have some in the plans right now. You'll see them appearing in the next 6 to 12 months, and that's what we are developing right now. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind, there's several members that don't know
One
what
last
MOOC
one.
is, so.
I'll be quick. So
No, I was just, there's several members that don't understand what MOOCs are.
Oh, sorry. It's I forget what the acronym is, but it's online.
Massively online open courses.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry. Like they have full master's degrees that you can get from Georgia Tech, like top 10 rated programs for $11,000.
Yeah.
So it makes it possible for you to work, not have the opportunity cost of leave, go back to school for a master's, and then get training in these. And so they do it in cybersecurity, other areas that have high needs. And certainly it makes sense to move forward in this space too.
And you will see new ones that bring in AI. And one of the things, as you know, the technology is moving extremely fast. And so I think these MOOCs will have to be refreshed on a regular basis. And we are very aware of that. What we do now compared to what we did last year is very different. The technology is moving extremely fast.
And the last question I have for you, if I may, is that the fuel for AI is data. And so from the state perspective, have you had opportunity to review how the state manages data? And if so, can you give us any feedback in terms of that? Are there things that we can change from a policy basis to make sure that we're retaining it, maintaining it, having accessibility aspects of it so the data can be best used?
Yeah, so data is so my life on a day-by-day basis is typically working with companies, making sure that we access as much data as we can. It's not always clean. We have to do work on this. Many of the data that we deal with is very sensitive. When you work with a particular corporation, They may have access to, they may have their own customers, they have their own, they have their own suppliers. And a lot of that information is extremely sensitive because you can actually predict how well they are doing and things like that. On the other end, we also work in the energy space. We have access to critical infrastructure. That data is to be protected. On the other end, we cannot do AI research if we don't have access to those data. So what we typically have is that different level of protections for data. We have to be very careful about this. So we have, inside Georgia Tech, you have different clusters that you can use for protecting sensitive data at different levels, right? So if they are controlled and classified information, we have different servers that for other customers. But some of the partners have also very sensitive data, and so we have different accounts for different projects. Now, one of the things that I believe is extremely important for the community is to actually release as much data as possible. One of the things we can do is there are techniques to do that, things like differential privacy, generating different types of synthetic data. I think the state should encourage that as much as possible. I think we are also thinking about having consortium of different companies working together for releasing some of this data, let's say in manufacturing, because manufacturing, we see tremendous changes in the future, but you need that to be driven by data. And so I think one of the things that should happen is that the regulation should be flexible enough such that you release as much data as you can while enforcing protection of individuals. And so I think that's one of the things that we are working on, and we can help you actually, navigate that space if that's of interest. Once again, I want to tell you that there is also technology to help do that. There is technology that is available that can help alleviate some of the concerns that people may have. Some of the regulation that you had in Europe were too strong, so we have to be flexible enough. Because otherwise, if the regulations are too strong, the data that you can release is going to be so noisy that you don't actually have the real data to work with. The data is not representative enough. So you have to balance these kinds of the risk that you take from a privacy standpoint with the fidelity and the usability of the data. And so that's a challenge, but I think it can be addressed by technologies as well as good regulation.
Thank you.
All right, we'll recognize Representative Gullett.
Thank you, Director. Programs at Georgia Tech so I was a computer science, major in college.
Yep.
I don't know that Georgia Tech has an AI major at this time, but I'm assuming it's embedded into the computer science program. It's embedded into the business program, like you said. Do you see that becoming a degree program? And then do you see other degree programs almost going away because computer science is going to be completely changed by AI.
Yeah.
AI is going to write code. It's going to be a totally different world. It already kind of is. So how do you see the progress of degree programs?
So I can give you an answer of what is happening now, and I can I can speculate on the rest of what could happen. Again, this is decided by the provost at the end of the day.
No,
right?
I get it.
So I'm not going to speculate for the provost, but I can tell you what I think could happen.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of programs in AI so we have a College of Computing and a College of Engineering. So let's distinguish the two because they're very different. I'm a computer scientist by training, but I'm in the College of Engineering. So I can talk a little bit about what is happening in both. College of Computing, I think there is a tremendous recognition that AI is going to play a fundamental role in the next 10 years. And we have to invest as much as we can, both, inside, kind of AI from inside Georgia Tech, but also interacting with the rest of the world. We have one of the schools that we have in the College of Computing. You could brand it as it's called interactive computing. It's essentially an AI at this point. It's essentially an AI school. But there is also AI in computational science and engineering. It's mostly AI for science in this particular case. So the AI is a little bit everywhere in computer science, but one of the schools can be considered almost as an AI school at this point. Whether it's going to be branded at that point in some fashion at some points, it may be the case. So I could speculate that it will happen at some point. But certainly, I think there is an extremely strong focus in the College of Computing on AI and investing more in AI, recruiting more in AI. In the College of Engineering, it's interesting because there are a lot of different engineering disciplines. For instance, if you talk about electrical engineering or power system, everybody recognizes that AI is going to play a fundamental role in that space. But you also need to understand how power electronics is working and things like that. So what you will see there are minors in AI for every one of these programs. I think this is where we are going. And this is one of the things that I think is really, really important, that every student in every one of the engineering disciplines is going to be exposed and will have the opportunity to take a minor in AI, because every one of these disciplines is going to be tremendously transformed by AI as well. So I think this is what is happening now. The sky is the limit in that space, and you can imagine that at some point there will be a college of AI or something like this. But that's that's purely speculations of my side.
Right.
But this could be something that at some point will be there. MIT has one, just to give you the context here.
Right. Thank you. I have one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
It's unrelated though. So in education, one of the things, a problem that I think we all worry about is keeping people intellectually curious, and with AI being so powerful and being so involved in children's lives, especially.
Yeah.
How do we see us threading that needle to where we use it to where it's good, but we still keep people where they, keep kids, especially, and adults too. You got to use your brain or you lose it, right? So how do we keep people when every answer is out there? How do you keep people intellectually curious to continue to go find new things to learn and to understand versus just kind of letting, the computers take over your life and what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you thread that needle? And do you think we have a plan yet? For at least a high level roadmap of how we do that, because as it's convenience, it's great data, it's convenient, it's going to, make your life easy. How do we make people think still?
Yeah. So my kids were like, 12 when the kind of the internet became mainstream, like in the early 2000s and so on. And it changed completely their lives. They would not go to the library except to be in a quiet place where nobody was, right? So they were using Google and other tools to actually find out about things.
Right.
And that was already transformative. And what you have now is dramatically more transformative, because you can actually ask questions and get reasonable answers for almost everything. Obviously, you have to exercise some critical thinking whether the answer is correct or not with some of the tools that we have, but that will improve, and this is where we need to do more research to make sure that you have accuracy and verification and validations of these tools. But it will change. My class has to be completely changed to give you a sense, because the students now can use ChatGPT, get almost the answer to almost of the computing projects that I have. So what do? I do more complex projects because now I know that the basics they can get automatically, but now I do project where they have to think much more. And so it's a lot more thinking about how you can model more complex situations instead of having some more simple examples. So I think the way I view how you can keep people interesting, and I'll tell you one more story afterwards, is to actually move up in the cognitive level instead of doing things that were kind of difficult beforehand because we didn't have the technology. Now you can go at a different level and more something where decision making is going to be more important, where they need to think really about, hey, what is the risk of something like this? What are my space of decisions? So how can I do things like that? That's what I'm doing in my class. I don't know. Yeah. So when we taught at Drew Charter High School, the first time I worked with Miss White, who was the teacher, who is still the teacher I'm working with, she told me, but your projects are good, but the students are going to be bored by them. And I say, why? This is super cool. And say, maybe it's super cool for you, but they do that every day on their phone, so they're not going to find that interesting. And so what we had to do is to actually find things that they would say, hey, this is interesting. I don't know how to do that. And so I think what you're going to see is we're going to start thinking about what can be the tools that we're going to need in 2 years' time. How can I simplify the life of people? How can I improve the life of people and make them thinking about how you can be transformative in the use of that technology instead of just doing, I have to learn the technology. So how can you actually apply that technology in creative ways that people are not thinking about right now? That's how I think we should reorganize our classes. That's how we have to educate the students such that they become more innovators and creative. And so they use the tools as creative tools to do things that they would not be able to do otherwise. I hope that
yeah, no, that's great. It's going to be a challenge, I think. I mean, you know.
Yeah, you cannot imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much level my brain's going to give me, you know, up there, and
Yeah, but
I'm on the lower floors, you know, if you know what I'm
no,
saying.
but I think the key point that we do, and you're a computer scientist, you're going to understand what I'm saying, but we are creating abstractions, right? So obviously you still have to look through these abstractions, but at some point these abstractions are so well done that you can use them without thinking about them, but you can use them for different things.
Right.
And that's where we are. And I think now we have to think about how we can creatively use these new tools. But frankly, we don't have enough people to do all the things that we want to do. I told you, I gave you a snapshot of some of the industries that will be impacted. But I can tell you about how the paper industry is affected, or you know, the cable industry is affected. Every industry is going to be affected by this. And you can have people thinking about, hey, how are you going to transform this? And I think that's the big opportunity here.
All right. Get out. One last question. I'll be done. So I believe that you're really excited about AI, and I'm excited about what this is going to look like. And I'm just at the end of this, what is the scariest part for you about AI?
So I think what I worry about is the fact that these tools are all on a tiny screen or a bigger screen, but we have a lot of our students or a lot of our children interact with AI much more than our generation. Maybe I'm actually an older generation than you are, but our generation, we're interacting with computers and social media and so on. It probably didn't exist when it was certainly not existing when
Mine either. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think at the end of the day, we have to make sure that, you know, AI is not the only interactions that they have with the world.
Right.
And so we have to keep having students think about the social implications of what they do, about the ethics of what they do, and about interacting with people. So after the pandemic, the first thing that I did is telling everybody in my group to come back to the lab, because this is where the most interesting interactions are taking place. We are social animals. And so I think we have to make sure that the technology is not used too much for interacting in a virtual world where most of the inhibitions that we have built in when we see people are not taking place. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm worried about. That's the one thing that I'm worried about the most, is that we don't keep enough social interactions. So that's one. The other thing is that we have to worry about the validation and the testing of every one of these AI systems. I'm in an engineering school, not in a computing school. And one of the things that the engineering disciplines do very well is that they have reliability, quality control programs, and everything. Every time if you build a bridge, you're going to make sure that this bridge is not, falling apart. I think what we have to do is bring also this kind of engineering disciplines to some of the computing area. So you saw what happened with all the airlines when there was a bug in a computing system. That should not happen. So we have to actually make sure that there is more validation, more testing, more verifications of this system. And the more these systems, the more powerful they are, the more validation and testing we need to have. I'm not a policymaker, obviously, and so this is not easy to do. But I think the policy should actually, there has to be policies to, making AI responsible. Sometimes instead of trustworthy, I use responsible, because that's what I care about, such that this doesn't happen again and again and again.
Right. And do you think AI will be able to do it?
I think we have good teams. I'm putting together, in Tech AI, a new team on verification, validation, and testing. And yes, I think we can do a lot of the things. But I think it has to be complemented by good regulations, right? So we can have the tools, but if people don't use them, then it doesn't serve any purpose. Yeah. So they have to be. I think we need also more transparency, more. A lot of my students, for instance, are very big on open sourcing everything, such that people can actually look at the system and know what they do. This is one of the ways to do things like this. No, not everything can be outsourced, obviously. But to a large extent, you may push that such that there is a verification, so that people can actually look at the system and see and verify them. They have access to them. So I think, yes, definitely technology can help tremendously, but it has to be complemented by good policies.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next, we have a couple members joining us online. One of them is Representative LaHood, who has a question. Chairman LaHood, if you can unmute yourself, feel free.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear you.
All right. Thanks for letting me participate virtually today. Mr. Pascal, thank you for your presence and your remarks and bringing your expertise to this conversation. I did just want to support one of your comments to the question about healthcare, how AI can impact healthcare, and as it relates to staffing and say senior care. Our U.S. population is rapidly getting older, and the working age population of 18 to 64-year-olds is remaining relatively static
Yep.
over the next, couple, 2-3 decades. And so that means the ratio of working age, people who could provide care to the older generation, that ratio is rapidly dropping. And so in Georgia, for the first time this session, we recognized some wearable medical alert type technology as it relates to staffing long-term care facilities. I could see more of that happening. In addition to what Senator Alvarez mentioned, AI working in the world of diagnostics and monitoring and all sorts of things. So I just wanted to throw that in there. That's what I do as a profession, senior care. And we're expecting really big impacts from AI. We're really concerned about the staffing crisis that we're currently in, and it's going to get more intense as time goes on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I think the state here, Georgia, is in a very good position to do something. I think we can be leaders in the country. We can actually we are potentially in a position to do a blueprint for the rest of the country, given all the assets that we have in the state. So I'm excited about this. We are working actively on this, and I hope that there will be a recognition on the state that we can be the leaders in that field and really change the way healthcare is delivered for the for all the and meeting all the challenges that we will face.
Representative LaHood, are you still there? I think we lost him.
Yes, that's my only question or comment for now. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have outside of mine.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
but we'll just one quick question.
Oh yeah, okay.
I really want to see Georgia be a research and development center here. Is there any outreach to startups through Georgia Tech to help get these startups off the ground? And if so, do you have any idea what is available?
Yeah, so there are. So Georgia Tech has been very, very involved in creating startups. So we have a program which is called CreateX, which the undergraduates at Georgia Tech can access to, and has been very, very successful with many startups that have been created, and some of them have become really, really big. I think what we need now is another level for that program, which is like where we tap into more of the master and graduate students, because the technology is getting very, very sophisticated, and so there is a need for these types of startups as well. I think Georgia, Atlanta, and Georgia in general is in an extremely good place for actually creating an ecosystem. We'll never replicate Silicon Valley. It's a very different environment, very different, it's very different, but we have the opportunity to create an entrepreneurship ecosystem here, which is focused on different things, less the high-tech companies, but maybe everything else, right? And I think it's a nice place to live. We have good universities, and I think there is a very strong possibility to create a very active ecosystem. We have to attract the venture capital to come here. So that's the main challenge. So we have to kind of be competitive with the Boston area and Silicon Valley. But I think there is a potential to do that. I was talking last week in one of these forums, trying to create about 2,000 startups together with Google. So that Google would provide, for instance, some of the computing resources. I think we have to encourage that more. We have to create the environment where it's going to be easy for people to invest in startups here, making sure that we have, we attract CEOs, we attract good people for managing these startups and so on. That's the key. That's the people is going to be it's going to be money, but it's also, making sure that we can attract the founders, the CEOs and so on, and making the environment a very nice place to create these startups. So I think we have many of the elements, but we need more. We need to make sure that we create this ecosystem. And when you start a startup, you don't have a CEO, you can get a CEO very quickly. And the CEO wants to be here. So I think we have to create that. I think we have the potential to do this. And I'm certainly willing to work with anybody who wants to work in that space, because I think that's one of the missing pieces that we have. But we are in a good position to actually move to the next level there as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And one final question. Let's talk about energy usage and what that looks like in this industry and its transformation for pretty much everything in our life. I mean, has Georgia Tech looked at or had any idea what that's going to look like for energy demand?
Yeah, so one of my group is in energy. So we do AI for energy. I think AI is going to transform the energy system. The energy system is going to be fundamentally different in the next 5 years. So I was talking yesterday to someone and saying, people don't realize how much changes we will have in the next 5 years. If we don't do anything, it's going to be a disaster. I think AI is going to play a fundamental role. AI is also going to place a lot more demand. So we have been very savvy to do that. Again, AI itself can help. You can actually offset some of the consumptions by having, trying to use electricity at times where it's not used for other purposes. I have a project with Intel just looking at this. How do you incentivize people to actually use, have the workload at different times in different places across the country where you can actually manage the load better? You will see more of that. I think the consumption is gonna increase substantially. And the key point is that this is also an investment that we can make. We can make it attractive for people to have data centers here in Georgia and make sure that we offset that with good investment in the way we produce electricity and distribute electricity. It's not only AI, right? So everything is electrified right now. So you electrify the car industry, you electrify, everything is being electrified. Things that were not electrified before are being electrified. So that's another challenge that we face as a society. So I would say healthcare, energy, these are big challenges that we are facing.
Perfect.
So, and once again, I think we can play a role, and we are Georgia is in a unique situation to actually be a leader in that space as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was Georgia Tech's presentation. Next will be UGA presentation from Jeanette Taylor.
No, it's regular.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to talk about AI at University of Georgia and what we're doing there. Here's a quick overview. There you go. Here's a quick overview of the plan for the talk. I'm going to give you a little bit of history, talk about some investments that we're making in the faculty space, talk about teaching and learning and how that's getting incorporated, our research initiatives and support. We've also already developed some faculty, students, and awards, and then I'll tell you how we're handling it as an institution and how we're dealing with development of policies around AI. So 40 years ago, the first organized research group started at UGA. So we've had AI research and teaching going on for 40 years. So AI has been around for a long time. It wasn't born 2 years ago with the release of ChatGPT 3 to the public. And so it's been around a long time and at UGA for 40 years. And after that initial group formed around research interest, common research interest, the Artificial Intelligence Center was created. That then developed into an institute, which gave it more flexibility for offering some curriculum and ideas like that. And then this year, we've elevated the Institute for Artificial Intelligence to a position where it can help the entire university and be a hub of activity. So it reports dually to the Provost's office and to the College of Arts and Sciences. Nearly 40 years ago, we approved our first master's degree in AI. So that's been existing for a really long time. About a decade later, a little more, the bachelor's in cognitive science was developed. Fast forward to 2022, the PhD in AI was formed. And now we're working on AI plus X certificates. So that is a core foundation of courses in AI, 3 of those, plus 2 from your discipline that would connect to or apply AI. So this could be basically cut across the entire spectrum of disciplines, majors, things like that. To the earlier question from the committee member about how far will this go, you make it adaptable, and disciplines can adapt as they need. So let me talk a little bit about the investments. In 2021, one of our presidential hiring initiatives was focused on AI and data science, with recognition that this is, again, as you all know, it's an important area that is going into the future. The goal was to hire 50 faculty across multiple disciplines. What I've listed here are the content areas of expertise in these cluster hires. So this was a collaboration between the central administration and the deans. The deans made proposals that many of which cut across colleges to say we want people in, for instance, environmental AI, precision One Health, precision ag, as just a few examples of the ones that were funded. So we've hired 49 with 1 in progress. So we're almost there at the 50 with this cluster. And it was so popular and of great interest to the campus that we expanded it the next year. So we added 20 more positions, but these now focused on AI and social sciences and AI in teaching and learning. These are already having an impact on our campus. These faculty, again, we're joining existing faculty doing AI and data science research. We have a good, promising news on a big grant in the teaching and learning space already, just based on the energy that came with these new hires in this space. So let me show you quickly of the 18 colleges and schools at UGA. You can see here, these are the participants. 12 of the 18 participated in these initiatives. So that tells you how interdisciplinary and cross-cutting the AI and data science hires have been at UGA. So College of Public Health, Ag, Pharmacy, Vet Med, lots of the colleges and schools participated. So let me talk now about AI in teaching and learning at UGA. In November of 2022, ChatGPT-3 came out to the public use. That has transformed, as everyone has said, higher education. It made a lot of faculty nervous immediately because students had at their fingertips, much as the way they had other AI tools before that. I mean, if you were a math teacher before fall of 2022, you worried about Chegg. That's another tool that's out there for students to use and get a little help with their homework. So faculty at UGA quickly adopted AI as its academic affairs symposium topic. We hold a symposium every spring. About 60 faculty take a day and a half to deep dive into some issue related to teaching and learning. And we got several faculty recommendations from that, including elevating the Institute for Artificial Intelligence to give us a hub of activity for both research, but also teaching. We have a Center for Teaching and Learning, which is excellent. It's headed by Dr. Meg Middlestat, who quickly became an expert on AI in the teaching space. She, in that group, they host the faculty resources for teaching. So this is a great resource for all faculty at UGA. Anyone who teaches at UGA can go and get resources, but also take workshops and get training. They just held the Generative AI and Teaching 2-day intensive workshop. This was intended for folks that really maybe hadn't waded into this, but they were curious. They knew they needed to get on top of it, and had about 100 faculty. And I just heard from her yesterday that they had some case examples of faculty who came in with no knowledge, and not only no knowledge, maybe a little nervous about what to do with this. And they left understanding it better and saying, I think I can use this in my pedagogy and make my classes better and have better student success if I can use AI in certain ways. So those will continue. The Center for Teaching and Learning also provides support for what we have, our faculty learning communities. These are also grassroots efforts where faculty with similar interests get together. They can get a little bit of funding to hold some meetings or do an initiative. The one last year, one of the ones that was funded last year was Innovating with AI in and Beyond the Classrooms. I'll talk in a few minutes about a contest they held for students. That was one of their interests, is to get the sense of what students are making of AI at this point and how they like to use it. This year, we have a Faculty for Immersive Technologies group. So again, leaning into these data science and AI initiatives. The Active Learning Initiative at UGA is our quality enhancement plan. So our accrediting body requires that the university take up a plan to focus on something to make improvements and to enhance education every 5 years. And ours was selected a couple of years ago to be active learning. Active learning is just what it sounds like. Instead of just having a lecture, you have some sort of hands-on activity, and you can see where AI tools are going to fit well into that space in terms of getting your students doing things to connect the material in a way, and then they really learn it. Studies show that active learning is a good strategy for student retention of material and for their success. So we're trying to get lots of our faculty, if not all of them, to have active learning components. Like many universities, we offer an instructional memo on best practices, and we also include AI guidance. From almost immediately after ChatGPT 3 launched in the spring of 2023, just following that event, we came out with a revised memo just to help our faculty and students understand what was happening and what they should be thinking about. Immediately, students, if they start using it and we didn't know about it, does it get into the area of academic dishonesty if you're using help when you're not supposed to? So it's around those things that students and faculty want to know more guidance. They want to know exactly what they can do and when and what they're not supposed to be doing. And then we also have AI supporting teaching at the unit level. So our Institute for Higher Education runs the Governor's Teaching Fellow program, which brings in educators from around the state of Georgia. And in 2024, their symposium was on artificial intelligence in the holistic classroom. We also have various colleges and schools that are hosting their own workshops for AI and their faculty. So lots of leaning in on the teaching and learning space. So in terms of research initiatives and support, I mentioned we made a big investment in faculty. So their research, those are tenure track faculty, meaning they're heavily involved in research and teaching. We wanted to connect those faculty, right? You can hire a bunch of faculty, they're interdisciplinary, but when they're hired into a tenure home, their job is to do their research, advance knowledge, and they focus on those things. We want to make sure that they're talking to each other and giving them opportunities to do that. So last year we had a series of events to connect them. And in February of this year, we had an AI team acceleration event, which was hosted by our Office of Research. At that event, as we got folks that were registering for the event, we asked them some questions about who would you like to talk to at this meeting about AI in what context, so that we could form affinity groups. So we formed AI affinity groups, put the members of the symposium into that and into those groups, and they were able to connect, and some of them are still having group connections to this day. We also highlighted at that meeting the presidential interdisciplinary seed grants that involved AI. So these are important internal mechanisms for funding research that then can turn into bigger, maybe grant applications or bigger projects. And a few of those included things like precision agriculture for pest challenges to fruit crops. This was a really cool project that a team of scientists, interdisciplinary, have undertaken to use in the precision ag space, drone technology, plus AI image differentiation to try to find disease on plants more quickly so that it can be targeted and not spread further. So that's a promising project that we're hopeful will help advance that area. We had a project on socio-technical solutions for countering AI deepfakes, and one on institutional ethics for the age of AI. So those are just a sampling of the seed grants that we're funding in the AI space. So I mentioned faculty and student recognition. One of the faculty groups that were funded through the Center for Teaching and Learning held the Generative AI Student Competition. I got to be a judge, which was fun. And this was a call for students to present projects that used AI in a creative way to make something better, do something for students on campus And we had 8 projects. We're hoping to do the contest again this year because it was just a new idea and there was a lot of interest in it, but maybe it needed a longer runway for students to develop a project. But the winning project ended up being this neat use of AI where they were trying to provide images through iterations in AI of what endangered species look like. We don't have great images of some of the species that become endangered. And so it was a neat project on how you might use AI creatively to get to a point like that. We also produced the first Innovation in AI Teaching Award for our faculty. So we offered an award to really recognize those faculty who have leaned in and used AI in a neat way in their classrooms, and we'll do that again this year. So finally, let me tell you a little bit about how we're working on AI at the university level. So to provide guidance where it's clearly needed, we formed a leadership council on AI. I am the chair of that as vice provost for academic affairs. And our goal, we meet monthly, more if needed in subcommittees, is to guide the UGA efforts on making us a leader in interdisciplinary AI research and applications, in teaching and learning the policies related to the use of AI. I've already mentioned our investment in tenure track faculty hires. What tools do they need? Do we have that infrastructure that's needed for them to advance? And then finally, harnessing AI as a tool for administrative efficiency. Where are use cases where AI tools could really be helpful in terms of advancing processes and making things easier and simpler if they're cumbersome or error prone or things like that? So we'll be examining those along the way. The council is made up of several standing members from the kind of units you'd expect. So the Office of Research has a standing member, the Office of Instruction, that Center for Teaching and Learning that I mentioned, IT, of course, but the library is an important partner. The library is an information hub. That's what they do. They do data, they do information, they know systems that work with this, and they were one of the initial spaces where we were offering faculty and students overviews on AI. They were offering those very quickly after ChatGPT was launched to the public. So we have a representative from the libraries, public service and outreach, of course, and now the Institute for Artificial Intelligence. That executive director sits on the board or on the council. We also have one dean and one faculty member, not necessarily from a particular college, but from a discipline area. So we wanted to make sure we had voices and experiences from arts and humanities, biomedical and life sciences, natural sciences and engineering, and social and applied sciences. We're a comprehensive university with lots of disciplines, and there's interest, as you can see from my slide, on colleges and schools that have participated in the AI hiring. So we want to make sure that we're covering the angles from the different disciplines that are involved with AI. And so what we're working on now, we're currently developing recommendations for guidance on policies on AI literacy. That's the main thing that we're doing right now. Over the summer, we had work groups working on this. We've developed a draft policy for AI literacy, which we see as being multi-leveled. You can have a very foundational level, and we want that to be accessible to all of our students. We're looking at a policy of whether or not to bake it into the degree for undergraduates. They need to be graduating with the knowledge of how to use AI. They're going to get asked about it by their employers. They better know about it, whether you are from a discipline that isn't currently using or involved with AI, you're still going to have to know what it is. So we're marching toward that, but we recognize there's multiple levels of competence. And so, as I mentioned, we have a PhD in AI. Feel free to come and get an expert degree in that. So we want to have a range of things, but really have that base level be very accessible, not based on taking a course. We don't want to make people have to do things that they're not able to do, because we're thinking we want this to be available to staff. When you've got AI technology that you're going to adopt maybe for a business process, they have to have a way to come up to speed. So that's an important thing we're working on this fall. We've already developed some additional AI guidance for teaching that went out in our memo just a couple of weeks ago. That had to do with, there are tools out there that help identify whether a student is using AI. So there are tools that are sort of countermeasures, if you want to think of it that way, for faculty who want the student to do the writing themselves, but they're worried that AI is doing it. They're not perfect tools on either side, either the AI tool to do the writing or the one that detects it. So we have required training for faculty who feel like there might be an honor code violation using AI. They have to understand the limitations of whatever tool they use to identify that. So that was just an example of something that we just added this year. We have policy drafted on research and graduate education. So in the spring, our graduate policy committee passed guidance for graduate students on use of AI in their thesis or dissertation and how they need to navigate that with transparency and in collaboration with their mentor. But our research guidance, which we're certainly reviewing and borrowing, a lot of good guidance already came out on this from lots of other institutions, Georgia Tech, Michigan, other places that might have gone out really early with guidance. We wanted to sample all of it and take what works for us and our faculty. And one of the things that I'll mention here in that policy that I think really stuck with me, and it kind of brings the conversation back to AI is a tool, right? It is an important tool. It'll be a transformational tool, but it's a tool. So for instance, if I publish a paper in a journal, I as an author take responsibility legally for what's in that paper. AI can't take that responsibility. It doesn't have the capacity because it has no agency. It doesn't exist that way. So it can't be my co-author where I can say, oh, that was the AI. It made the mistake. Just like my statistical package that I do my statistics on can't take the blame if I've put in the wrong data or interpreted incorrectly. So research guidance at UGA is going to be reflecting and reminding our faculty, use it as a tool, but don't expect it to be able to do things for you that it can't take responsibility for. So that gets into building in ethics and things like that also in your policies. And then finally, we have a parallel group working on the security piece. So a subgroup that's working on security. As we might adopt AI tools, maybe for business processes or other things, what are the security challenges that we have? We have to be careful about that and make sure that we are protecting the data at a university that is protected. It's protected by FERPA. You can't just load, for instance, your course grades and student information into a large language model. You don't own that data as a faculty member. That is private data. And so we want to make sure that our faculty and folks that are moving fast with this fast moving technology can understand where the guardrails are. So that's what we're working on. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And thank you for coming here and giving your presentations today. Right now, I believe number 24, Representative Buckner has a question.
Could you elaborate on an AI data science initiative in the realm of social work?
Yes. So social work was part of that extension cluster. And that was a partnership with public health and our Family and Consumer Sciences College, recognizing that this is touching the work that is being done with populations where there might be needs for therapy and it's hard to get there, right? So how do you, for instance, just as an example, get empirically vetted treatments to rural Georgians when you don't have a trained psychologist on staff at a clinic in town? So how might you do that? And technology has been helpful in that space, including social work, for developing technologies that can do at least some of the work. And also, telehealth is another example. That's not really AI, but it's technology. And so AI really, I think, is coming into the betterment of these sort of chatbot apps that can do some help when you don't have a provider that you can get to easily. So that's just one example. I'm sure there's better or deeper examples, but that is another area that comes back to the question earlier about healthcare and how AI is related. It's really technology, AI, data science, all of that. How do we meet demand and how do we make treatments that are effective accessible when a face-to-face meeting isn't possible? It's just not feasible or practical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Gullett.
Thank you for your presentation. Excuse me. Of the, I guess, colleges that have it, you haven't onboarded someone, a faculty member for AI yet. Do you envision pretty much all the colleges are going to have that at some point, or are there just some colleges where, or some areas that it's just never going to probably work? I think you said you did 12 maybe on the
12 of the
yeah, right.
18. Yeah, yeah. So you're worried, you're wondering about the 6
Yeah.
that didn't. So one of those is our honors college, and it has no faculty. So that's maybe not fair. So of the 17, there was maybe 5 left. The School of Law didn't participate. They have the professional programs have maybe a little bit different focus. So the School of Law didn't participate as an example.
Gotcha.
But they have good AI expertise. They already have someone on faculty who was at that spring symposium in 2023 who is looking at it from a legal standpoint. So the ethics and laws around AI. So they already have some expertise in that. So they were already playing in the field, but they didn't participate necessarily, or their application wasn't funded. We had many more than we could actually fund. So I think at the end of the day, all the colleges asked for funding, but maybe I should have been clearer whether or not we were able to fund all the proposals. We chose the 8 focus areas from among the ones that were proposed. It's a good question, but I think back to my point, there are going to be disciplines. They may not be the ones you think, but there are going to be folks even within the disciplines that AI just won't be part of their research or creative activity. And it doesn't need to be. At UGA, we really, we're not asking all faculty to use AI.
Right.
We're saying, how can we educate you in case you find that it is appropriate for good student outcomes, for good student success, and to advance your research. Absolutely, we want to make sure that we're supporting that. So we have onboarded some of the AI faculty, and they are connecting, and we're trying to increase that with the Institute for Artificial Intelligence to make sure that law faculty member has a place to connect. He's actually a fellow of the Institute already, so
Gotcha.
that's my example.
And on your PhD program, that's fairly new. Like how many? I'm not sure if you actually have any students that graduated there since it's new, but how many do you envision, taking part in that?
Yeah, so that's another one where we'd like to expand it into that AI PhD plus X thing so that it could be adapted. Right now, it is in our institute. It's offered by the Institute for Artificial Intelligence. So it's very much more of a computer science focused, deep understanding of AI versus applications of AI, right? So there's that distinction that I think is important that we see at UGA in terms of lots more of our faculty that we're hiring in this initiative are users of AI. They're not creating it. They're not creating the large language models necessarily. They're trying to figure out tools that advance their work and push the envelope that way. So I think, those kind of things are what we're thinking about to some extent. The PhD that exists now is more on that, understand it deeply, could create new AI types of products and things. And but with the interest that we have from lots of colleges, we want to be able to develop something that has a core set of courses that are digestible by folks that are not coming in as a computer scientist necessarily. So that's the challenge that we have with that certificate I mentioned, is you're going to end up with probably two versions, right? The computer science version, which can be highly technical, and then the more applied version where you can make a digestible understanding of this technology and then apply it in your discipline, which is where the fun stuff would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions from the committee? With that, I've got Representative Holcomb. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. And from the higher ed context, which we didn't get into as much with the first speaker, and particularly with the potential for misuse, honor code violations, et cetera. It seems to me if there are longer projects that could be cured in part by making them provide drafts, et cetera, which is more work for the teachers and the professors, et cetera, for shorter projects that would be very, very difficult to identify. And I don't know the answer to this, but every time that you run a query in ChatGPT, does it give you the precise same answer, or is it always different? And that's what makes it difficult to be able to track.
No, what makes it difficult to track is ChatGPT produces it generates, right? It's generative AI. It generates a product. It's not thinking and it's not reasoning. It's just giving you a product. So it's getting better, as Pascal said, but it is still prone to what we call hallucinations. So if it doesn't know the answer, it's a computer. Now I'm going to anthropomorphize it. It's desperate to please you. So it's going to give you something. It wants to give you some answer. So it might pull data which is limited, as we've said, earlier, data is the fuel for these large language models. But ChatGPT came out in November 2022. If it had no updates to it, then when you asked it a question in August of 2023 about an event that happened in the spring of 2023, it couldn't give you an answer because it doesn't know. The data hadn't been added to it, if no more data added. So part of the challenge with this is, where are the data coming from? Is it scraping the internet? But to your point, it doesn't have a reliability in the answer. I could type in the same prompt 3 days in a row and get a different answer, because whatever data it might be scraping from might give it a slightly different probability that this should go next to this now in the generated sentence. And now I've got a different answer. So it has to, these are the kind of things that are still in development that we still need to do, which I love your question, because it does highlight how much can it do for us right now? And, from my perspective, it's a tool. The students are using it in fun ways. They're having fun with it. And as a starter, it's absolutely great. I got to tell you, from a syllabus creation standpoint, ChatGPT writes learning objectives like nobody's business. Why? Because you tell it, here's the content, and it gives you very straightforward language. It's not interesting to read. It's not fun. It's not creative. But it's facts. So it's good at that, but it's not going to be good at creating, a high level poem just with write a poem. So really, there's a lot still that has to go on. So we need our students in higher ed thinking about, how do I use this material? I can just type some stuff in, but how do I type better prompts? How do I type prompts that get more at what I want? And to Pascal's point, when I get an answer, just like when I use my statistical package, how do I know what to look for to make sure this is right?
Yeah.
Because it will give me things that are incorrect. So we're trying to figure out if there's a watermark in it, if there's something that could be created in these tools that would help identify when it's not a transparent use of AI. What we like are transparent uses of AI. If a student said, I used AI to generate the first draft, great. But what intellectual activity went into it after that to get to the final product?
Right. Okay. And then my other question is, do you have any Georgia-centric projects that y'all are working on now that might inform policy?
Yeah. So I think back to, just as one example, that the precision agriculture, I think, is an area that we've invested in that's definitely Georgia-centric in terms of our storied agricultural college that is working with these faculty who are trying to use this technology to help farmers make more efficient use of pesticides or whatever it is, to that example I had on the fruit crops. I mean, that is a very promising, exciting area where we're really trying to lean in on that. And I think Pascal identified a few other areas with hydroponics and how do you use AI to do things like predict, use the data that we have, that's our data, so it's usable, to predict where this is going. We can do equations now, we can already do that, but AI might have a better, more precise viewpoint when it pulls in lots more data than you can in a simple statistical package with a prediction. So I think using more information to make predictions is what's useful. That's what that machine learning gives us. That's so helpful, as it just can grab so much stuff. You just have to be careful what it gives you, because you have to know whether what it's giving you makes sense.
So with that said, we're actually going to have a farm visit that's using AI. It's on the 23rd of October, so we'll get into that. Are you done? Okay, thank you. So I wanted to start with education because my firm belief is that's pretty much where everything should start when it comes to policy. And I appreciate both Georgia Tech, Pascal, and Jeanette, you being here today. I'm just going to give a little anecdotal comment here real quick. I talk a lot about technology and how technology affects people's lives. And really, I say, well, government isn't the great equalizer, but technology can be. It can really bridge the gap and disparity between people that really don't have what they need. And And our job is to create equal access for people, to give them an equal, equitable access to technology, because that will really increase their quality of life. And the whole reason why we're all here is quality of life. That's the reason why this really isn't a partisan issue. With that being said, I wanted to just real fast. I know we talked a little bit about the university system, but what do you believe that we need to be working with the K through 12 to have the proper, I guess the college prep diploma is going, what was 1997 when I graduated to now is going to be much different. Are you integrating with K through 12? What are you all doing with K through 12 to make sure that they're ready for the next level that you're responsible to bring to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm glad you brought up K through 12. I think that is an important area for the state to be looking at in terms of what are the expectations for high school graduates and what they're, when they're produced with their diploma, what's behind that in terms of understanding, again, maybe back to this idea of basic literacy. Like, do they have basic AI literacy? They have AI, technology literacy. But do they have that basic literacy? For our part, we have, back to these hires that we've made, several of them are also in the College of Education, where the teacher training is happening. So we're glad that that college is participating and is looking at, is aware and versed in AI. They have faculty that are joining them that can help keep that moving. Because I think that's where you're going to see it, right? Because teachers will have to be taught how to teach AI and how are they incorporating it, because the students are in K through 12 are well ahead of us on that, right? So they're already also playing with it. They're already also using it. What I'm not sure about, and we, again, through our College of Education, we have connections with our local county schools. Those are the good partnerships that we have. But I do think informing school districts, K through 12 districts, about what are their policies on understanding AI, talking with their students about it. I think that's where the foundation for ethical use of any tool, AI or otherwise, should come from. If you're practicing that from the beginning, how you use it, be transparent about your use of it, just like back in the day when the calculator came on the scene, right? Teachers are like, oh my gosh, you can't use a calculator. And now you whip it out and you do a graph on it in like a second. And people are like, that's how you should do it. You don't, I'll teach you what you need to know to understand that graph, but you don't actually have to do all the math to make the graph now. We're at that stage, that early stage of the, oh my gosh, AI, what do we do with it? So we can't put our head in the sand in the K through 12. We have to make sure that we're empowering teachers to understand this well enough, have a basic level of AI literacy, and to talk with their students about responsible use and ethical use of it. That will then get them into universities. Down the road, I would expect that we wouldn't need any takers on whatever our basic level of AI literacy is that we're developing now. That should eventually go away, and then you just can come for more expertise if you need it. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I mean, it does. So the technology, I mean, really, most of the time when I'm talking to CIOs and people out in the industry, they're like, listen, this is like 3 years old for us. I mean, really mainstream acceptance. So I don't expect you to have an answer today, but the part of the whole job of this committee is to try and dig in and figure out what it is we need to do and how we guide the state to where we're being successful in the future. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go ahead and, did you want, oh, I'm sorry. You got one more question.
Happy to answer it.
Thanks. Your question prompted this, and I looked at the requirements for the cognitive science major. Really, really interesting for a bachelor's degree. And one of the courses is ethics and artificial intelligence, which we've talked a lot or a little bit about the ethics on the back end of using it both in the student context and then I practice law, and there was a pretty famous case of a lawyer using AI for a brief, and it was completely wrong and wound up getting sanctioned by the court rightly because he didn't use it as a tool and then check to make sure that it was correct before turning in the product. But what we also hear about a lot is on the design of the algorithms themselves and the bias, et cetera, and that part of the ethical component. Can you talk just a little bit about how that is part of this whole conversation?
Yeah, I think that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I think baking in discussions of ethics and requirement of going through ethics training is part of the degrees that we create in AI. So it's part of that cognitive science degree. It's certainly expected that the certificate, even with just 3 core courses, one of those will be on ethics, and that's a broadly defined. Let me be clear, not just look for bad actors or don't do bad things, but it's a broader intellectual conversation about AI is one of those technologies, just like other technologies before that, where you say, we can do it, but should we do this? Like, we can go there, but should we go there yet? Are we ready for that? And we've had other technologies that have gotten in that space where it develops so fast that it's way ahead of maybe the thoughtful discussions, which can take a while. And I get it. There's this tension between progress and, how do we do this well? And so ethics, I think, baked into the, into degree programs where you are creating a technology that does have the ability to go badly, or not badly, but be dangerous in certain ways. How are you being thoughtful about that as you're creating these kinds of things, as you're thinking about them, the use of them, but also if you're creating it? So the cognitive degree that you were talking about is really, how do computers mimic what's happening in the human brain, and how does that happen? It's a bit neuroscience, it's a bit cognitive psychology. But we're talking about a system that mimics the human brain. It's not there yet. It's not there yet, right? Because it can't think, it can't reason, it can just generate. But if that's where we're going, we better be thinking about ethics as we're going to advance AI, since that's really the goal from long ago, is it can do what the brain does, because that's a neat kind of thing that humans somehow figured out, right? It's like getting to the moon. How did we figure that out? It's a neat thing to do, but this one has some other potential. I hope that answered it.
Thank you, Jeanette. I really appreciate you being here today. I don't have any more questions. So, with that being said, we'll talk about future meeting dates. I will send this out to everybody. On September 12th, we'll be at Augusta for the cyber security data privacy to talk about those 2 topics. On October 2nd, we're going to have a virtual meeting, which will be K through 12 education. The 23rd, we're going to go to a farm and talk about AI. So that, I felt like that was a really interesting one. So it'll be the 23rd of October. The 8th of November, it will be at Emory to discuss healthcare and public safety. And at that point, we'll those meetings. I'm sorry, I should have said that, prefaced with that. Those meetings will all 1, 2, 3, 4 of them will be joint with the Senate. I feel like that's the best way. Both of the presenters presented in the Senate already, and we just felt like that was better use of everyone's time, not have to come here twice to present. So we will do a final wrap up sometime. I'm not going to tell you if it's going to be in person or virtual in December, and we could just kind of discuss. So before now in the next meeting, I would just ask the committee to think about, what do you see AI policy being in the state of Georgia forever? When I'm going to just opine here for just a second. Technology, if you look at it, in order for us to be successful, we're going to have to accept technology. And this one's coming. The AI is not going away. I always talk the story about Sears and Roebuck, right? Sears and Roebuck invented the mail order catalog. And Amazon came along and found a better way to get the mail order catalog stuff to you. And you see where Amazon's at, and you see where Sears and Roebuck is, because they failed to reinvent themselves. They failed to accept technology that was coming. Sears and Roebuck did. I mean, obviously you have a guy that's sitting in his garage selling books that is now a billionaire, when you had Sears and Roebuck that had all kind of money that just refused to accept, the direction of the world. So in order for us to my belief is, in order for us to set up the future for Georgia, we have to, this is a technology that we really don't have an opportunity or an option not to accept. But we do have, as I was always told, you can't stop progress, but you can decide what progress is and what progress isn't. And I think really, to me, that's the fundamental decision-making guardrails for what this committee should be up to, what is going to be progress for Georgia and what isn't progress. I think obviously when it comes to deep fakes and unethical use of AI, that's not progress. So that's an area I'd really like for us to focus on. With that, we will be having lunch for anyone that wishes to join us. It's going to be sponsored by the Georgia Association of Manufacturers, Brittany Hall, American Chemistry Council, Wes Robinson, and the Georgia Cable Association with Hunter Hopkins. And unless there's any more comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn. All right. Thank you. We are adjourned.